Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening. The world is changing, and along with the change in the world, we see new powers emerge. This century is going to be the Asian century, the century of Asia. Until now, people have been thinking that the dragon is going to encircle the world, that China is going to be the center of attraction of everybody. And that was legitimate thought because China has been able to build up an economy robust, strong, globally powerful. But the recent events show that in the emerging markets, the center of attraction is going to be India and not China. Nobody can deny that the Chinese equity, for the lack of a better word, really hot. And they have staged a remarkable rally since the depths of the global market sell off. Since last March, almost a year has passed, and China has really done wonders. It has ensured its power to stay, and it has accelerated since December, the last 3 months. Small wonder that China, although the epicenter and the villain of the global pandemic, has been the first economy to emerge from the outbreak's deleterious impact. First economy. No economy could come out of the depths of the morass created by coronavirus, but China. And unlike the on again, off again economies of Europe, America, and other countries, the recovery of China has been truly a V shaped recovery. And there has been a marginal resurgence of COVID and the containment measures since the height of pandemic in early 2020. Now the recovery seems complete. Other countries still have second and the third wave of the pandemic. In fact, China is likely to come out as the only major economy in the world to have grown at all last year. 100% absolutely accept. It was just 2.3% last year. Modest by the Chinese standard would talk of 9%, 10%, 11%. And what has happened is that the defeat of President Trump recently, who was a hardliner against China, seems to augur for more sunny days ahead for China. So far, so good. But then, if I really look down, I find the global investors have placed pandemic woes of the world's second largest economy, China, along with Trump's thoughts that the show that the in the rear view mirror when we see the global investors are changing their trend. The important question now is what is going to happen tomorrow, not what is been happening till today. That's something different. But when we look forward, if we have got a clear sight and we can see through the fog created propaganda and the reality, the future Chinese stock return would be modest. It would not be red hot. It would be warm, all right. And it is time for the investors to begin looking for opportunities where the returns are going to be more, where the investment is going to pay off. And in these emerging markets, One country stands out as a country of hope. Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, yes, they would be there. Their economies are attuned, but they will not the leaders. The leader is likely to be the elephant which is going to spring like a tiger, maybe a mutation of the species. For one thing, I question how much further Chinese equity can climb. In January, if I look at it, the MSCI China gained 7.4% compared with 3% in broader MCI in India. And it was, if I look at the S&P 500 index, it was minus 1.1. Now go back over the last 12 months, and the outperformance is remarkable. The Chinese index has risen 46% in this year, in this period, I mean, say, of 12 months. Yes, but is that enough? No, it's not sustainable. It's great, undoubtedly, but it's not sustainable. And I suspect that the good news on the COVID and whatever optimism is justified in the trade have been largely already priced. There's always a boom, and boom is always followed by a fall. I am skeptical that the Biden administration heralds a dramatic time of US China relations. But don't forget, the American public remains firmly anti China. And Biden's top candidate cabinet post on China suggests that the hard US line will continue. The new Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Commerce Secretary nominee Gina Raimondo, and the newly created Asian Policy Coordinator Kurt Campbell, they are all hawkish on China. They may not love India, but they don't hate India. This is the crux. They hate China. They are bit against India, but they don't hate India. And that is the most important thing. Imagine the pick for the National Security Advisor, Jack Sullivan. He's already speaking against China. And the Chinese right, their attitude, their human rights violation, technology violations and the thefts, trade, Taiwan, and Tibet. For the first time since Trump ordered a special study on Tibet, this is going to be a hotspot again. And as a matter of fact, Modi would be well advised to ensure that the guerrilla force which was set up, the Tibetan force, which nobody talks about, is revived and strengthened. It played a major role this time. And then, if anything, it shows a great challenge, security, a great security challenge to China. USA has shifted its stance on Taiwan. It used to talk of preventive separatism and is opposing pursuing unification program of China. It's also warning China that Taiwan's independence, if it's threatened, can lead to war. So the headwinds to China from USA, as far as the economy is concerned, are not likely to be as strong as they were. US tariffs on Chinese goods are likely to remain high, and they may not be compared to the pre-Trump era or the Trump era, but they'll be at the pre-Trump era. And the shift in the US-China relations would end it more in tone, multilateral, less volatile, but they will be less in substance. There'll be more of shadow. And this could cap up the upside of Chinese equity in the middle term. In contrast, now see the potential for the Indian economy and its equities. The MSCI India Index has performed strongly in the last 12 months, and nobody talks about it. Unfortunately, the political situation makes people go dumb. In the last 12 months, the MSCI index was 21%. The increase was 21%, and that is what Bloomberg data shows. And Bloomberg is, you can be sure, no lover of Modi government. It is again funded partly by Bloomberg and a Democrat, and partly by George Soros, who was bold to remove Modi. But even they admit that the economy, the data, index data, improved by 21%. And then it is going to go forward. The government recently announced its Make in India 2 initiative. It's a reboot of the original 5-year plan to transform the country into a global manufacturing and design hub. Now, mind it, not only manufacturing but design. China has always been the manufacturing hub, and it was stealing the technology and the design. But India's new plan is to make it a design and manufacturing hub, and that's going to attract the investors. Other initiatives are there. I don't think you have heard of them. The plan calls for more private capital and the FDI, opening up of agriculture and lower taxes for the manufacturers. Now, when the manufacturers have lower taxes, they are happy to come here. And if you compare it to USA, the manufacturing costs are lower, the taxes are going to be lower. The only thing missing is that they should enter into a double taxation treaty with USA. With India, they already have. Sorry, with Canada, they already have. But they won't need to enter with the European Union and with USA. And now, another thing, the new labor code which is coming. Parliament has passed it last November, I think, yeah. And that's going to be game changer. What is the impact going to be impact of that? It will simplify 40 current laws into 4 codes, 40 laws, and improve the ease of doing business. Would help formalize jobs in a country where 85% of the jobs are informal. Now imagine from 85% if you make them formal, make them payable, make them attractive and easier. And the labor code is simplified. Why would people not come? No, what will be the result? It will result in sharp step up of the financial inclusion of the masses into medium term. Even the local people who are going to invest, Indian investor, normally what they invest is in either real estate or in gold. So when they see this sort of thing coming up, and did you notice that India was the only country where the Sensex did not drop? That was something about above commendation, I'll call it. Now, when the masses start investing, the foreign capital, the foreign investor is always finely tuned to the home atmosphere. So, this will create a medium term and a long term credit consolidation history for the India's large masses. The concept of the credit history is not to that extent there, but it will do that. It will establish. And the large cohort of the unbankables will become bankable. So these are the huge steps towards improving per capita income and consumer spending. Now come to the manufacturing. I see particularly promise in India's pharmaceutical industry. And we have seen it. The pandemic has exposed the critical nature of pharma sector and the need of the pharma supply chain as never before. India was the only country we come to the global health. Now today, if I look at the industry, China has 35% of API market. API is global active supply chain. And the value of this is $180 billion. 35% is $180 billion. So you can well imagine. And Hubei is the three largest manufacturing provinces was impacted. Now, what's going to happen? Modi government is making robust efforts to bring API back to India. It is offering promotion schemes. It is offering grants and incentives for the domestic manufacture of APIs and the key starting material, KSMs. And last but not the least, India's much anticipated budget presented last month did not disappoint. It absolutely focused on growth and has accordingly relaxed government's medium term fiscal consolidation targets. And then it struck a very right chord, very finely to. And this fine tuning is increasing transparency, is bringing some of the balance sheet's liabilities and budgeting revenues in a very conservative manner. It is seeking to jumpstart asset sales. It is signaling an intention to commence some financial sector reform. And the sale of the assets, LIC, Indian Airline, Air India, and host of so-called Ratnas would bring the money in, and the government has no business to be in business except for governing. So that's going to attract people. And let's be clear, in advancing a case for India, we are not suggesting, and I'm the last person to suggest, that the Chinese stock has definitely run its course. That's very clear. But the days are not numbered. It will give a tough fight to India. It will be a tough competitor. But India, with its change policies and its record for the last 12 months of having MSCI higher, 21%, is poised to be a lighthouse that will attract all the investors in the foamy seas to come here and invest. This will be a safe haven. And then it's a democratic country, it's an English speaking country. So even if they are not, the volatile stock market history argues for diversification. That's a given. And if diversification is to be there, what better country where you have got a strong judiciary, where you have got a strong independent press which can highlight your problems, and judiciary which is always happy to ensure that the justice is given. So this would make investors consider looking beyond China. They'll seek upside and hedge risks in emerging market equity allocation. And when they want to hedge their risk, there's no better place, I feel, than India is. The Indian investor is already doing that. And with the foreign investor and the foreign manufacturing who are going to use India as the design hub, leading to the manufacturing hub, that is going to be a game changer. And India is poised to be the lead actor. And I would not be very wrong if I say that's not going to be Asian century, it's going to be Indian century. Hopefully, let's wait and watch, and you would see the veracity of my statements. Thank you.